In the anime, we finally met Kathleen Bate, #1 hero for the United States, and she's been ripped from our lives just as quickly. We could be mean and blame Horikoshi's laziness or lack of development for female characters as the cause, but it's deeper than that. She was a genuine threat for the villains that might have ended the series too quickly and without the use of One for All. With that in mind, she deserves a deep dive into who she was and what she accomplished while alive. My Hero fans, like with other series, know not to take films as part of the main story until the author confirms it. And when the Two Heroes film came out in 2018, we did just that. Except we were proven wrong. During a moment in All Might's youth, he saved a family going to the Santa Monica Pier from an attack that would have easily crushed them. That's not unusual for him, but what matters to us is who he saved in that car. Kathleen Bate and her family. The villains weren't targeting them exactly, but were willing to use innocent bystanders to get away with the money they stole. Even then, at such a young age, she was willing to sacrifice herself if it meant protecting her younger sister from certain death. But right as she was resigned to that, All Might's bright smile and blonde hair lit up her childhood and inspired her to follow his path. And he wasn't even a pro yet. Oh, and fun fact, she was born on Independence Day, while also sharing her birthday with Izuku's mom, Inko. It's like she was destined to be a shining beacon of hope for the United States. But anyway, going further, unlike the career paths we're used to seeing in Japan's hero society, Star chose to go a stricter route. After reaching adulthood, she joined the military to receive training there, and likely to strengthen her body in all ways necessary. While doing that, she still worried she couldn't reach All Might's impossible stats as a hero. Even with New Order, an amazing quirk, it wasn't enough to enhance her strength or speed to his level. And, to make matters worse, some of her fellow soldiers blamed it on her gender. Still, there were some good eggs around to encourage her. When she seemed resigned to never reaching her dream, other soldiers cheered her on. In fact, they saw that it wasn't her gender or body that made her less powerful than All Might, it was her quirk. And let's be honest, her quirk isn't some world-saving cheat code passed down for decades. There really is no need to compare herself to One for All. Not that she could have known that. Eventually, through hard work and those guys' encouragement, she became a pro hero worthy of being respected by all. And those same soldiers became teammates for her, flying by her side to take down villains and threats to the world. But not unlike One for All, New Order's details were hidden from anyone who wasn't highly placed in the government. Whether this was to prevent villains from taking advantage of its weakness or just because of how powerful it is, it didn't matter. As a pro hero, she became the beacon of light for the United States with her skill and powerful quirk. And to the surprise of no one, her costume reflected the colors and design of the United States flag. But so did her hero name, Star and Stripe. She even dyed her hair blonde and copied the tufts of hair All Might had, but added 6 more of them. Did she have some idea that All Might was the 8th wielder of One for All? Or maybe she added more tufts to show that she'd surpass her idol one day? There's no denying his lasting influence on her. Even her costume colors could be an homage to All Might, since his outfit used red, white, and blue as well. But enough of how they're the same. We know all that. New Order is its own beast, and so is the way Star uses it and battles villains. So let's start with the basics. It's called New Order because she can literally change the order of things, in the sense of warping reality to a certain extent. But it's also because of the rules that she sets with the quirk. That's where we discover the first limitation. Star can only set 2 rules at a time, and in order to set a new one, she has to cancel the one she had previously. With a quirk that requires such deep thinking, it's no wonder Star became such a renowned hero. She has to play 5D chess to work around herself and her opponent's quirk. The rules themselves can be applied to something she touches. This is a must. Or to herself directly. And even things invisible to the human eye qualify as something she touches. I guess it would work on Invisible Girl then, right? As for how it works on herself, Star can enhance herself, which we knew from her military past, but it only elevates to a certain point. It can't go beyond what her body could physically take. On the flip side, there isn't really any limit for how much harm she can cause her enemy through a rule. Star could stop their heart, or steal their oxygen, or crush them to death if she needed to. The US should be glad she chose to be a hero and not a villain. Back to the rules though. Like you'd imagine, it's easier to use rules on inanimate objects since they don't really fight back or argue. Along the same vein, a car or a building has no sense of self that could contradict what she knows when creating a rule. I'd assume that applies to living things that don't have conscious thought like humans. For example, plants and trees. If Star is putting a rule on someone, she needs to touch them and know exactly who they are. Nowadays, and especially in a world with quirks, that's not always the easiest task. Someone like Twice, who doubts he's the original version of himself, or Shigaraki, who struggles to leave his Tenko childhood behind, will become an issue. And he actually did, but we'll get to that later. Part of why having 2 rules at a time is a major downside for Star is that she's constantly buffing herself with one of them. This means that if she needs to apply a rule to any enemy and also the environment, she loses the enhancements she had. This could leave her in a dangerous position. That explains why it's so important for her to travel with her military bros as backup just in case. Still, even as just Kathleen Bate, she's a tough and incredible woman. Without relying on New Order, her training has helped her be more durable than the average hero. And whether because of All Might's influence or her experiences as a woman in the army, Star has willpower that far surpasses most, even in death. Arguably, one of the biggest compliments she's received was from All for One. Yes, he's the king of the underworld and all that, but he's also incredibly calculated and experienced. There's no denying his intelligence and talent as a villain. So for him to say that Star was a threat that he didn't want to deal with, we have to believe it. Not only that, but All for One wanted to secure One for All before even facing off with her to ensure his victory against the world's strongest woman. As an unwavering hero, much like All Might, Star saw the destruction that happened in her mentor's country and had to do something about it, with or without permission. Other countries weren't blind to the events that Shigaraki and All for One caused, so some world leaders met in a top-secret meeting to discuss if they could send heroes to help or not, and this was after a request was sent on behalf of Endeavor, Hawks, and All Might. While the countries deliberated, Salam and Big Red Dot aggressively held themselves back because they wanted desperately to help, as any true hero would. But, see, Star has no such patience. As soon as she saw where the damage happened, and who was asking for a hand, she was out of there. Paperwork and proper protocol be damned. Interestingly, the way she states that she has to go because it was a request from her master, All Might, makes it sound as if, were it anyone else, she wouldn't have gone off as quickly. But considering we have so little time with her, it's hard to judge whether her bias towards him is that bad. But if that's true, it would have been a bit problematic to show such favoritism towards him. Either way, Star may be a hothead and a brawler type, but she's not stupid. So even though she's moved without permission, she still contacts Admiral Akbar, an obvious Star Wars reference, to explain how she needs to use their extremely powerful secret weapon. And besides, she has special authority to use it, considering her history and rank. From just a few minutes of facing Shigaraki, Star immediately understands he's more than a national threat for Japan. If not put down, he could destroy the world. So that's how she proceeds. Wasting no time, she makes a giant air version of herself to attack Shigaraki. It's not visible to him, but also more powerful and able to move across a wider range of space. Despite using what's essentially a skyscraper version of herself and even squeezing him, Shigaraki is able to regenerate and survive. So like any logical person would do, she grabs the laser shot out from her partner's aircrafts, launching an attack called Kuranos. In case you were curious, that term comes from the Greek word for thunderbolt. Kuranos is described as a continuous blast of lasers that she's forcibly holding with the air giant's help. But what happened to the secret weapon? Well, that's when Akbar contacts Star, warning her that she'll lose more than her hero license over this decision. In other words, even if she had survived this fight and slowed down Shigaraki with her rules, she couldn't have worked as a hero to fight in the final battle. Maybe she would have been detained or something. That aside, Akbar supports her by sending an intercontinental cruise missile for her to take down Shigaraki. The weapon's called Tiamat, which was the name of the primordial goddess of the sea in the Mesopotamian mythology. Tiamat was also called the Mother of Gods, which could have worked as a cool nickname for Star too. As for Akbar, he does sound a bit worried and even affectionately calls her Cassie rather than Star or Kathleen, demonstrating how close they must have been. Not to mention he's looking at a photo of her when she was a child alongside All Might and David Shield. If only we'd taken this as the death flag that it was. But the fight doesn't end here. With Tiamat on the way and her trying to keep Shigaraki back long enough to use it on him, she has to come up with a plan. If she wants to grab it, she can keep a hold of the lasers from the jets at the same time. So the idea is to have them focus their fire on him non-stop so she can use Tiamat without being interrupted. But things can't be that easy, especially with the Master of Deception inside of Shigaraki. So he of course knows that she's stalling for something massive that would take him down with one shot. For both of them, this is a life or death moment that could change the course of history. Star successfully grabs Tiamat, hurrying to the right position and next move before it injures her. She sets another rule, redirecting the entire blast from it under her control. This leads into her using a special move she calls Intercontinental Cruise Missile Punch. And yes, it's exactly as the name implies. But also it acts as a monstrously massive nuclear explosion beyond what we've seen in history, and definitely the most powerful thing in the series until now. Sadly, Shigaraki / All for One is basically the luckiest murderer around. Having predicted that something catastrophic was waiting for him, he made sure to time it just right to decay to the underground right as Star made a new rule for that attack. So when it hit, he was hidden and avoided being absolutely obliterated by the strike. And let's not forget that he had no idea what was coming or the nature of the attack, but still came out alive. It was a massive gamble that paid off and cemented Star's next decisions. Plus, with Star being too far away to notice the Nomu that was used as a decoy, she couldn't make a different choice. With no more means to demolish the world-ending threat that is Shigaraki, Star's friends begin to panic for her safety. If her quirk is stolen, the world is done. But they also don't want their teammate to be crumbled if they can help it. They fly in to both defend her from being attacked and to keep Shigaraki back, while she considers her next move. But before the decoy Nomu was destroyed, he yanked out its quirk and uses it to blow them back so that he can freely jump from one to the next. With him closer than ever and atop her teammate's plane, she tells Star to crush him, regardless of if he dies at the same time. But Star knows an explosion like that wouldn't work. She's seen everything he's lived through this far. There's no doubt that his fast regeneration would save him from it. But fear not. Star's got another plan ready for him, something that can't be dodged or avoided by digging underground. Knowing what's at risk in these last moments of her existence, Star willingly lets him take her quirk. No fight, no fuss. And Shigaraki / All for One, as smart as they are, doesn't see that as a red flag? It's shocking how confident he was that he'd acquired the best quirk besides One for All so easily. Perhaps it's because of the relief that Deku and One for All didn't show up to support her. He knew that he'd lose in a matchup against both of those powerhouse quirks if it came to that. Besides, he didn't think that he'd be able to face Star with an incomplete body and survive. But here we are. So yeah, he's being overconfident. As he pulls her quirk from her body, hand on her face, the decaying activates as well. In a desperate attempt, she sets a rule to stop her body from disappearing, but all it does is slow the progression of it. Meanwhile, he had no idea that the rule she set for her quirk beforehand. Let's just say it doesn't play well with others, and likes to be the only one around. So the vestige of her, representing New Order, rips and tears any poor soul's quirk that's within Shigaraki's body. In many ways, could this be a better end for the stolen quirks and their owners than what they've been used for until now? All for One also assumed Star had tried to save her body over her quirk, which was so wrong it was funny. Making a rule for herself was just an afterthought, and wishful thinking if anything. Deep down, she knew that she wasn't going to survive now that Tiamat failed. But he couldn't get the satisfaction of having or using New Order. Her goal was to make sure that the world would be saved for a while longer after she was done. And because of that quick thinking, Shigaraki's forced to flee and try to give the quirk away so that he could survive this internal boxing match. This allows her colleagues to survive the clash too, especially since his reflection quirk is one of the destroyed ones. With time running out for her, Star relives her meeting with All Might and how he inspired her dream. She succeeded in being at the top, though not as long as him, and with half her face flaking off, she salutes him, her remains falling into the ocean. After Shigaraki tries to give New Order away so that he can take it back afterwards, it starts disappearing instead. And with that, her quirk no longer exists, but her vestige's will still remains slightly within Shigaraki. At the young age of 42, Star and Stripe leaves the world, creating a major loss for the US heroes. Ironically, it's just like how All Might's retirement in Japan created a hole to be filled, and of course it was caused by the same diabolical man. The news of her death spreads around the world. Following that shocking turn of events, other countries back off in fear of losing their best too. This just further shows us how great of a power she was, and that no one thinks that they're going to come close in a fight with Shigaraki. Sure, some heroes still want to help, but they're told to prioritize their own country's safety instead. It's not all bad news though. On the plus side, Star's takedown of many quirks inside Shigaraki delays his advancement for a week. He was supposed to be at full power in a day, so the next generation of heroes got more time to prepare. And because she chose to use herself instead of sacrificing her team, they were able to share data of the fight with the Japanese heroes. Star was a true hero until the very end, even though she definitely deserved better. That's pretty much the full story of Star and Stripe. She does show up again in the final moments of the final battle as a fragment of her vestige simply pointing in a direction inside of the All for One vestige world, but that's pretty much the last time that we ever see her. Let me know what you think about Star and Stripe in the comments, guys. And if you liked the video, please give it a like. And if you're interested in seeing more My Hero Academia content like this, subscribe. Thanks, guys.